guys, we back with another one, and today we got to talk about Michael Jordan and his early morning text to Stephen A. Smith about this greatest point guard of all time debate. And I stayed away from it for a few days just for the simple fact that I wanted to see everything that came out about it. You know, you got different think pieces. You got people like Patrick Beverly siding with Steph Curry. And a lot of times when an era is over and someone is currently playing and you get to see, you know, their great feats, their great dynamic things in real time, and the memories of what the other great did starts to fade. You know, you tend to elevate other greatness above greatness of old. And, you know, we see it with LeBron and Jordan. And I always say these things are eras. You caught a moment in time in your era, and you're going to be biased to it because of factors like nostalgia, where you were at the time, who you were watching the games with, you know, what was going on in your life, whatever. But this thing here lately, Magic Johnson and Steph Curry, it's kind of been sparked after Gilbert Arenas asked Steph, does he feel like he's the greatest point guard of all time? Of course, you don't play the game to be second to anyone. You know, specifically at your position or all time. You know, you don't get as good as Steph Curry seeing yourself as second. A lot of people had a lot to say, but none more notable than Michael Jordan. We're going to take a look at everything Stephen A. Smith said because I want to let you know why Jordan said what he said. But we're going to look at what Steph said to set this whole thing off, and we're going to look at, you know, everything else around this. And I'm going to be back with more. I got a lot to say about this. Let's peep.
Are you the best point guard ever?
Yes. Yes. It's me and Magic? That's the conversation?
Yeah. I know there's not a lot of 6'9" point guard. No one's trying to. I'm thinking about the 90s growing up. There was nobody trying to be a 6'9" point guard, right? I mean, it just. But I can witness and watch every kid trying to be Curry. You know what I mean? So it's like the influence that you really have on the game from the position as a player. I look at the stats and say, okay, Magic then Curry. When I look at the kids and I watch AAU, it's like, nah.
Yeah.
Here's what I could stand in front of even the great Irvin Magic Johnson and say. Are we going to sit here with a straight face and say that Steph Curry doesn't warrant consideration as the greatest point guard who ever lived? Now, if you're talking about a quintessential point guard, I've got the ball in my hands, and I'm running the show, and I'm conducting the offense, and I'm passing, and I'm facilitating opportunities for others in that regard, that's a quintessential prototypical point guard, and there's nobody better than Magic Johnson. Nobody. But I'm asking y'all to take into consideration the word impact. So I'm Magic Johnson, and I'm 6'9", and I can push the ball up the floor, and I can dribble behind my back, and I can throw no-look passes, and I can get into the lane when I want to, and I can facilitate. We all know that Steph Curry is the greatest shooter we've ever seen, right? You ever see him move without the ball? I know that Magic, quintessential prototypical point guard. The bottom line is Steph Curry warrants that level of consideration.
Hey, do you agree with Stephen Curry? Is he the greatest point guard of all time?
To me, yes, he is. Here's where I would ask people to reconsider, much against my friend Magic Johnson. I'm talking impact. Steph Curry is the greatest shooter God has ever created. Mm-hmm. His marksmanship is unrivaled. He is a career 42.8% shooter from three-point range. There are people who haven't shot 40% from three in one season. Mm-hmm. Most haven't.
Right.
This dude does it religiously. He's a career 90% shooter from the free throw line. He's a career 24.6 point per game scorer, and he's a 4-time champion. He is clearly the leader of that franchise. He's a high character individual. But this is where it stands out for me, and this is why I think it's so important. When you think about the point guard position, you're thinking about impact, the impact on the overall game. You're not thinking about the prototypical point guard, your ability to look and pass. That's not what we're talking about here. Mm-hmm. We're talking about running a team and having an impact. Magic had an impact because of his leadership, his ability at 6'9" to push the ball up the court, to pass it to the likes of Kareem and Worthy and Norm Nixon, then Byron Scott and Michael Kupel and Michael Thompson and Kurt Rambis and all of these guys, right? James Worthy and all these guys. Steph Curry's movement without the basketball, because he's such a lethal shooter, scares and petrifies his defenses so much that the impact is profound. And so when you look at what he brings to the table from the free throw line, from the perimeter, in the open court, and how he has transcended the game, because now everybody's trying to shoot threes.
Right.
I mean, when you think about it from that perspective, I'm talking impact. I'm not talking about, oh my goodness, I'm running a show and I'm orchestrating an offense. I'm talking about from the point guard position, you can make an argument that Steph Curry's impact is greater than that of even Irvin Magic Johnson. I have to read you a text that I received this morning at 5:54 a.m. Good morning, sir. Although greatest of anything is always a debate, I beg to differ on greatest point guard of all time with what you said. Magic Johnson is easily the best point guard of all time. Steph Curry is very close, but not in front of Magic. You must define point guard to really have a serious debate. Steph Curry is by far the best shooter of all time. Yes, his movement has created many shots for his teammates. He's a career 43% three-point shooter. But Magic Johnson invented the triple-double. Not true invented, but makes it more noticeable in terms of the impact on the game. It's a point guard stat, to be honest. Magic was the best. We can go on, but I don't want to take up too much of your time. I know you get the point. By the way, Magic has 5 NBA championships.
Wow.
That quote this morning at 5:45 was from Mr. Michael Jeffrey Jordan.
Wow, how about that?
And he asked me,
Wow.
he asked me to read it on the air. He said, I'm not backing up for it. He said, I'm tired of this argument about Magic Johnson not being the best point guard in the history of the game. He is the best point guard in the history of basketball. That is from Michael Jordan.
Yeah, man, so that's wild. Looking at all that, but Jordan felt compelled to, say, look, man, you can't put him in front of Magic just yet. It's close, but Magic is the guy. And you see a lot of that protecting of errors. You used to see it against Mike when he was a younger player. Older players would say that certain players at his position was still better than him or certain players better than him. So this is a normal thing. If you're younger, this is just going to happen. Like when Steph and them get older and LeBron and them get older, they'll be calling the new younger players and saying, no, this guy that I went against was better than the guys that you're saying is better now. This will be ongoing forever. What I will say is the quintessential point guard, I can only look at it like Magic and Isaiah. When I think about a point guard and the way that they should play the game, is because I'm from a certain era. I see it as the facilitator, maybe, a very good point guard is like 19, 20 a game, but in the certain playoff series, they'll elevate their average to 30 something or whatever it takes, high 20s. Because the game was played inside out. You went to the big and you played through him back then, more so. Even the ones that wasn't, greats, you kind of, they touched the ball, right? It wasn't just running up and down and shooting all the time. One thing I'd like to say is Steph Curry wouldn't have even been allowed to play the game the way he plays it back in that era. That's why I always say it's error-based. He would have had to handle the basketball and be able to make good decisions with the ball in his hands, or he would have been on the bench. You know what I'm saying? Or he wouldn't have played as much. He'd been looked at more like a specialist at a certain time period. And I'm talking about before he got the strength that he has now. He would have had to get that strength sooner to be able to, handle. Because you were looked at as handling the ball, and you didn't shoot many threes like that. You kind of shot them off of action, but you didn't come down hunting threes like they do now. 5 for 13 or, shooting, 6 for 15 from 3. was not common. It took several games to shoot that amount of threes. You know, you might shoot 1 or 2 a night if you were a good shooter, but that wasn't, you know, your first option as a shot. And as far as Magic, people say, you know, you didn't seeing Gilbert Arenas say that you didn't see people really trying to be Magic. Yes, you did. They might not have been 6'9", but yes, you did see people trying to be Magic after Magic. Do we forget about a 6'7" Penny Hardaway? That was an uncommon height for a point guard too at the time. Point guards was, you know, 5'11" to 6'2". You kind of looked at that as the height range. You see Luka still trying to do it now. He's not the fastest. I don't see him as a point guard. I actually see him as a wing. They're forcing to play point guard, but you see people trying to mimic that. They've been trying to mimic that Magic Johnson thing for a long time. And also, when LeBron was younger in Cleveland, I don't know if a lot of y'all remember this, but they moved him to point. It was either his first or his second year just to try to recreate that Magic thing because of his passing ability. They tried to just stick him at point because he was a great passer. Couldn't handle the rock like Magic. They were picking his pockets so much that he went back to the wing. I don't know if y'all remember that brief moment in time, but it did happen. So it's not as easy as just being 6'9" and being a skilled passer. You have to be able to turn your body to the defender and pat that ball real low while holding off defensive players because they're a lot smaller and they're going to try to reach in there and poke the ball away. And they were able to do that against LeBron successfully several times. So when people say, oh, LeBron just a more athletic Magic, that's kind of lazy because we saw what the defenders were able to do to him, whereas Magic could handle better through traffic than LeBron more often. So I just want to throw that out there because a lot of people forget that. Magic, you know, today Magic would still be a point guard. He's a point guard back then. He'd be a point guard now. I could look back and say Steph would have had to figure out a new way to play the game because him shooting 10 for 23 sometimes, you know, he shoots a fairly high percentage, but I'm just saying getting 15, 18 threes up some games, that wasn't the style of play, and you would have, I mean, it could have helped Steph if he was stronger, you know, to play off of those guys, the bigs, if he could make good entry passes. Because sometimes Steph throw wild passes. I'm just saying, like, if he could make the right pass. Because he was able to move great without the ball and relocate and find open spots in the defense. So if he would have played with a dominant big, he might have done pretty well. I'm just looking at it like he would have had all the ball handling duties. You know, he would have had to handle a great majority of that, more than he does now, with hand checking. That's what I'm trying to tell people. Like that portion there would have been difficult because that's what they would have asked him to do. He wasn't gonna just be able to let Draymond bring it up because Draymond couldn't handle the ball back then and just bring it up the court. People just kind of let you bring it on up now. But back then, some of the guards, they not letting you. Like, imagine Muggsy Bogues guarding Steph and Steph trying to get it past half court. That's what I'm thinking about. Mookie Blaylock, Gary Payton, the way they could hand check you, pull on your shorts, reach around. That would have been a little problematic for Steph. But I think in the half court, you know, if you put Steph, you put him in Kenny Smith's situation with the Dream, and they was able to get it past half, and he was able to get some shots off of Hakeem and the double teams. I think in that scenario, you know, he would have probably done pretty well, but it would have been required. He would have been required to be this Steph strength-wise that he is now earlier in his career to have a chance to have a similar career. So, yeah, man, that's all I got on that, though. I could go on and on, but I just want to point out a few things. This isn't to take away from anybody. It's just, you know, to highlight some things that are different and chime in on this conversation. But let me know what you think about this in the comments, guys. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Until next time, peace.